I never thought I'd be the guy writing one of these stories, but here I am. I guess I just need to vent and share my experience because it's been quite a roller coaster. So, buckle up and let me tell you how I spray painted my wife's car in a hotel parking lot after packing all her stuff in it. My wife Morgan and I have been married for 6 years. We were high school sweethearts and married right after college. Life was simple and we were happy, or so I thought. Over the past few months, things started to change. Morgan began picking up evening shifts at the restaurant where she worked. She used to work day shifts, so I didn't think much of it at first. I mean, extra money is always good, right? However, something just didn't sit right with me. She would come home late, exhausted, and I could see the strain it was putting on our relationship. She claimed she was just too tired to be intimate, but then this started happening on days when she wasn't even working an evening shift. One day, as I was doing some laundry, I stumbled upon one of her server order sheets. A confirmation number was scribbled at the top. Curiosity got the better of me, so I Googled it. It turned out to be a hotel confirmation number. My heart sank. I checked the format, and it was for a hotel just a stone's throw away from her workplace. So I did what any other person would do in a situation like this. I decided to call the hotel. I pretended to be a guy named Morgan, using my wife's name as my own, claiming that my credit card had been used without my permission to book a room. I demanded to know who was using my card and if there were any more reservations. The receptionist, trying to be helpful and calm me down, complied and gave me all the information I needed, including a new reservation made for Tuesday evening. The realization that this wasn't just some fluke hit me like a ton of bricks. This was really happening and it didn't make any sense. I felt a mixture of fury and sickness, anger, and extreme sadness. I make great money, have been a very stable partner, and not to brag, but I am a good giver in bed. In other words, I make sure she loses her mind every time, in a good way. So why would she be seeking something outside of our marriage? What an idiot. As soon as Morgan left for her evening shift the following day, I sprang into action. I couldn't believe I was about to do this, but I was fueled by anger and betrayal. I crammed all of her clothes, toiletries, and other belongings into garbage bags, loaded them into my truck, and drove to the hotel. When I arrived, I spotted her car in the parking lot. My hands were shaking, but I was determined to go through with my plan. I used the second set of keys to open her car and crammed all of her stuff inside. It was a tight fit, but I managed to get everything in there. Now for the real kicker. I had picked up a can of bright orange spray paint the day before, and I was ready to leave my mark. My heart was pounding as I sprayed "I am cheating" on all sides of her car. It felt both terrifying and liberating at the same time. At first, I felt like a complete, trashy criminal. However, with each swipe and mark I left, I was getting huge bursts of adrenaline. Once my masterpiece was complete, I took pictures of my handiwork, knowing I would need evidence for the aftermath. With my task complete, I drove home feeling a mixture of relief and sadness. I knew that our marriage was over, but I couldn't help but mourn the life we had built together. Once I got home, I changed the locks on our house, ensuring that Morgan couldn't just waltz back in when she discovered what I had done. Now for the cherry on top. I posted the pictures of her spray-painted car on Facebook and tagged her in them. I made sure to get pics that showed the hotel sign and the restaurant in the background so there would be no doubt as to the authenticity of what was going on. I knew it was a petty move, but I wanted her friends and family to know what she had done. I wanted her to face the consequences of her actions. It wasn't fair that we would end up divorced and she could go and say whatever she wanted to anyone and never have to fess up to what really happened. She was just going to have to face the consequences of her actions and deal with life the hard way, like the rest of us. With that done, I took some ZZ-Quil and went to sleep, knowing that the next day would be a whirlwind of emotions and chaos. I woke up the next morning groggy from the ZZ-Quil, but feeling strangely calm. I checked my phone and saw a barrage of missed calls and texts from Morgan. She was begging me to talk to her, to let her explain, but I didn't want to hear it. I had all the proof I needed, and there was no point in dragging this out any further. I made myself some coffee and checked the footage from our door camera. Sure enough, Morgan had tried to get into the house in the early hours of the morning. She banged on the door, pleading for me to open up, but I never budged. The following week was a blur of meetings with my lawyer, calls from friends and family, and endless tears. I filed for divorce and Morgan didn't contest it. She knew she had messed up and she didn't bother trying to fight for our marriage. It was a painful process, but it was necessary for both of us to move on. So there you have it, my crazy, painful, and adrenaline-filled experience of spray painting my wife's car and packing all her belongings in it. I hope that sharing my story can help others who might be going through a similar situation. Just remember that you deserve to be treated with respect, and sometimes you have to make a bold statement to ensure that you get it. To Morgan, if you ever read this, I don't hate you, but I don't think I can ever forgive you either. I hope that you learn from your mistakes and find happiness in the future. As for me, I'm ready to start a new chapter in my life, one that doesn't involve lies, betrayal, or spray paint. I am not sure that cheating will ever stop, but perhaps with more and more stories like this going public, people will start thinking twice about cheating and do the more honorable thing that is, to end their relationship as peacefully as possible without betrayal, and then work on themselves before finding another relationship. Who am I kidding, though? Now let's go to the second story. I never in a million years thought I'd end up telling this story, but life's funny that way, isn't it? I'm a little nervous to share this with you guys, but here it goes. My wife, Lacey, and I had been together for nearly a decade. She was the love of my life, and I thought we were rock solid. Then I found out that she had been cheating on me with her boss during their business trips. To say I was devastated is an understatement. I first became suspicious when Lacey started taking more business trips than usual. She said they were attending insurance seminars hosted by the companies they sell for. I believed her. I mean, why wouldn't I? She'd always been honest and upfront with me. As time went on, I noticed that she became more and more distant. She was always on her phone, and she'd freak out if I so much as glanced at it. It didn't take a genius to figure out that something was off. So I decided to do some digging. I tried getting into her Instagram account, but I didn't have her password. I'm not a tech-savvy guy, but I have a buddy who is. I reached out to him, and he agreed to help me. He helped me get into her Verizon account and managed to get the security code Instagram sent her via text message. With that, we were able to access her account. I wish I could say I found nothing, that my suspicions were unfounded, but that wasn't the case. Instead, I discovered a message thread between Lacey and her boss filled with dirty messages and pictures. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. My first instinct was to confront her, but my buddy managed to calm me down. Instead, we devised a plan to get my revenge. We decided that once Lacey left for her next insurance seminar, I would completely move out and ghost her. No note, no explanation, nothing. So that is what I did. I spent the next few weeks playing the part of a man who still cared. I was able to keep that smile on my face because I knew what was about to happen. I contacted my lawyer and got him started on the paperwork, and I lined up the help I needed to pull this whole thing off. The day she left, I sprang into action. I emptied half of our joint bank account and had a few friends come over to help me move my stuff to a new apartment. On the other side of the city, I officially filed for divorce and started my new life. Immediately, I blocked her from all communication methods, including social media, phone calls, and texts. But I wasn't done yet. I found out who Lacey's boss was married to and informed her of the affair. I provided her with the proof she needed to confront her husband. It felt good to know that not only was I starting fresh, but I was also exposing their dirty little secret. She was upset at first and didn't want to believe me, but when she got brave enough to open my texts, she couldn't deny it. I told her she deserved the truth just as I did and she wouldn't get it from her husband. She knew I was right, and so, through crying tears, she thanked me. Days turned into weeks, and I never heard a peep from Lacey. It was so nice. I knew she'd have to move as well because she didn't make enough to afford our rental house anymore. My income provided us with the bulk of our lifestyle, and without it, she would be forced to live a lot more modestly. Right away, my new apartment started to feel like home, and I even began dating again. Things were looking up. Then came the day of our court hearing. I walked into the courtroom wearing my best suit, feeling like $1 million. Lacey, on the other hand, looked like a shadow of her former self. She was disheveled and seemed to have aged years in the short time we'd been apart. It was clear that life had been tough for her without me. After all, I'd been the one providing the security and luxury she'd become accustomed to. As we sat in the courtroom waiting for the proceedings to begin, I couldn't help but feel a mix of emotions. There was a part of me that still cared for Lacey. I mean, we'd spent almost a decade together. But I also felt a sense of pride in taking control of my life and walking away from a toxic situation. Lacey must have noticed me sitting there looking all polished and put together. She attempted to make eye contact, but I refused to acknowledge her. She even tried to speak to me, but I ignored her completely. I wanted her to know without a doubt that she'd lost me forever. The divorce process itself was relatively smooth since we had no kids, and I'd already moved out and taken half of our assets. There wasn't much left to argue about. The judge granted our divorce, and just like that, our marriage was over. Over the next few months, I continued to settle into my new life. I embraced my newfound freedom, and I even started to enjoy being single. I was meeting new people, trying new things, and slowly but surely healing from the heartbreak. One day, while out grabbing a coffee, I actually ran into Lacey's boss's ex-wife. We exchanged pleasantries and chatted for a bit. She thanked me again for coming forward with the information about the affair and said that her divorce had been finalized as well. She shared that her husband, in an attempt to salvage their marriage, broke things off with Lacey and even fired her. That explained a lot. Anyway, she said she didn't lead him on for a moment and sternly let him know they were done. Good for her. It seemed like she was doing well, and it made me feel even better about my decision to expose the truth. As time went on, I realized that I'd become a stronger, more resilient person because of my experience. I'd walked away from a toxic relationship, stood up for myself, and even managed to take down a cheating boss in the process. And though I wouldn't wish what I went through on anyone, I can't help but be proud of the person I'd become. I also learned that sometimes the best revenge is simply moving on and living a happy, fulfilling life without the person who wronged you. So there you have it, folks. That's the story of how I ghosted my cheating wife and started a new life without her. It was a roller coaster of emotions, but in the end, I came out on top. Now, when I look back on my journey, I can't help but feel grateful for the lessons I've learned and the strength I've gained. While this revenge was different, it turned out great for me in the end. What do you think? Let us know in the comments.